Good morning. Welcome back to Faith Family Focus. I am your co-host, Faith Suggs, former Duke Women's basketball graduate and current marketing manager for SIG Sports, as well as CEO and founder of Brand by Faith. This wonderful man next to me is my father, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served on the executive board and as VP for the RPFPC, the charitable arm of the NFLPA Chicago chapter. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
Good morning, Faith. How are you?
Monday. What is this? The last Monday of. Well, let me double check that fact before I.
No, I think we
have one more Monday left in July, but July has gone. It just flew by, I tell you.
Quick.
It really has. It really has. So obviously, NBA is over. WNBA is in full swing following WNBA All-Star break. But the news on the sports side right now is, of course, the Women's World Cup for soccer. So people are getting excited for that. We always get a little excited for our women's soccer team, of course, in the United States. So that'll be exciting as well to see how the ladies do. Of course, they are our pride and joy on the soccer side. They hold it down. So hopefully we have another gold and World Cup win from them. Remember, I don't know, the last time they won was Megan Rapinoe, and she had a legendary tournament. On the other side of soccer, Messi had his debut in Miami. It's official. Messi is an American soccer player, and he's making millions of dollars. So it's just a lot going on in soccer. In this country. It's exciting, though. I really am excited for the World Cup, though. I love watching them play. They're always really good. Every legendary team that has come. And now you have this one, of course, with Alex Morgan and leading the charge. So it's exciting. Are you going to be able to watch any of the games, Dan?
Yeah, I think I will. I think it is pretty exciting. So I'm beginning to get excited about NFL football as training camp begins to ramp up. Got a chance to watch the Netflix series Quarterback, and it is really, really good with oh my God, Patrick Mahomes. It's really good. Jay Mariatti, the quarterback for the Titans. Where is he at now?
And
then the Minnesota quarterback. I had a brain mark today.
I just said his name. I just said it 3 times, and you're sitting there not listening. Kirk Cousins, Mariota, and Mahomes are the 3 quarterbacks in the movie.
Right, really good. Have you had an opportunity to watch it? Really good.
Yes.
Really good.
Yes.
And so another, just want to share with you, there's another backstory with the New York Jets that's kind of, and so there's 2 players that I played. Actually, I played 1, Joe Klecko, and then, of course, Darrelle Revis, both being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there's a little controversy between the 2 of them. That's kind of hitting the headlines. But really, really neat to watch 2 former NFL players from the New York Jets be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Of course, Aaron Rodgers is starting training camp. Pretty excited about the year, Faith. I think, again, last year, all they need was a solid quarterback. They can get if they can eliminate any kind of drama in the locker room, because New York is the social media capital of the world, and everything is just blown out of proportion sometimes. I think they'll do really, really well. So with soccer going on, WNBA basketball going on, NFL starting up, there's a lot of World Cup is starting up. There's a lot of excitement in the world of sports, and so get ready. And then, of course, your brother EL's beginning to ramp up. He is probably 1 month from training camp, so that'll get started pretty soon. So football is on the horizon too. So a lot of good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we get to training camp, we'll probably dive into a few conversations about what we think this season, or can the Chiefs repeat? I guess is the question on everybody's minds. Can you stop the Warriors of the NFL? Because right now they're building a dynasty. So exciting to see kind of how that goes on that end of things, of course. And then I don't know if you've also seen the Steph Curry released a documentary recently following his starting with just his story of growing up in North Carolina to then going to Davidson, his 3 years at Davidson, the legendary run where they went to the Elite Eight, and to him getting drafted to this last season when everyone thought that they were 2 seasons ago when they won their fourth ring. When they thought they were down and out, they didn't think Clay was the same player anymore. They didn't think Draymond couldn't move the same way. They thought Steph was too injured. They didn't think they had the pieces. Of course, they won the 2022 NBA championship, and the most Warrior style, but it is a pretty deep documentary to kind of follow his story about a kid who honestly should not be where he is. So there's a lot of neat pieces on sports lately.
Yeah, really. There's a lot. So, did you see him hit his hole in one?
I did.
Tournament? That was really great too. Man, he's talented, and just really excited to see.
He's particular.
Yeah.
He's very good at adjustments, and it's not surprising that like a high valued, great scorer, but ability to be able to shoot at a percentage that he can shoot at. You can see the connection to golf as well, is the ability to correct yourself and be able to adjust. It's not surprising at all. It's actually kind of interesting to see the two connections between the two sports through him.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. I was just looking at this article. He's been playing for a long time, and I just his form, I didn't know he was that good, and so it's kind of really neat to see how talented. It reminds me of when Michael Jordan was playing. Michael was a really good golf player too. So it's amazing how some athletes. You look at Deion Sanders, who played 2 sports. All these really, really great athletes. Bo Jackson were playing in sports. Of course, I played 2 sports, but not at the level these guys are playing at. It's kind of neat to see that coming back, right? To see these dual athletes that are really good at 2 different sports. So that's just what
I don't think it's really gone anywhere. I just think that we just haven't been paying attention. I think there's a shift now, though, where the guys are heading back to the golf course more than they ever have before. I think that's happening. Like Patrick Mahomes is a heck of a golfer. Stephen Curry is, of course, a great golfer. We saw that tournament they just had in Vegas where they had Kelsey, Mahomes, Clay, Steph out there playing. No, they can golf, right? And I think that, like I just said, I think that it's interesting to see that sports and positions that require in-game adjustments and like the ability to feel when something is off or like being very particular about things, seeing it transition to the golf course is not a surprise at all, because you kind of have to be the exact same way. It's the ability to adjust where you land in a way and like fix your swing, fix everything. Everything has to be particular. So it's pretty interesting to see that those two transition to each other, but it's not surprising at all. Patrick Mahomes, the style of player he is, he's a 2-sport athlete with baseball, right? And then Stephen Curry is a 2-sport athlete within basketball itself. So it's the way he shoots, but also who he is as a player that's 2 different identities. So it's not surprising that those 2 sports can, in some sort of where we're starting to see the transition more and more than we have ever before. I think Michael Jordan was just couldn't lose. He had too much on the line. He was a great golfer. They'd say that. I just don't know if they're playing the same way that they used to play now that they did back then.
What do you mean, with money on the line?
A lot of money on the line. I'm sure it's a little different now.
I like when you said that. It was a little too much on the line.
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure in his game, for sure. But Michael Jordan himself has said Stephen Curry is a great golfer. He was thoroughly impressed with his game. They've played before. So yeah, no, not surprising at all. Hole in one, what is that, twice or 3 times in a lifetime type of thing. So
right.
For great golfers. For us, it's not. So yeah, no, interesting stuff, of course. But we'll have lots to talk about as the World Cup kicks off officially with soccer. I know we wanted to dive a little bit into a conversation around love languages today. We've discussed this before on previous shows. But I think the main question for today and what we're going to really dive into is, can love languages change with time?
Mhm.
Can they evolve? And I guess your first initial thoughts on that, do you think they can? And if you think they can, why do you think they change?
Well, I don't know. So as you navigate relationships, as you navigate relationships with your significant others or with your friends, I don't know if they do change. I think one would focus more on others. I mean, I'm looking at. So let's talk about them. You have the giving gifts. You have let's see what quality time, physical touch.
Quality time, acts of
Quality,
service, physical touch, words of affirmation, and gift giving are the 5 love languages.
right, right. I think if you navigate, it may change in terms of quality time. For me, it's important not only quality time with your significant other, but quality time with yourself. I think is important.
So you don't know if they change or not.
I don't know. I mean, when I tee that up to you, I thought about it. And I'm thinking, you are who you are. I mean, is your relationship going to change? Relationship with your kids, relationship with your significant other, relationship with your parents, are they going to change your love languages? I mean, I think it's something that um, I don't know. I think it might be who you are. I mean, how do you feel about that?
No, I think they can change because I think as a person you change.
Hmm.
So it doesn't make sense for it to not change. And the reason I say that is because you'll never be the same person you were every single year. Who you were a decade ago was not the same person you are today. So for how you communicate love and how you communicate appreciation and how you communicate just like in general with your inner circle, this is your employees, your family, your partners, your kids, your parents, everybody you interact with in some sort of way, you communicate through your love language. And your love language changes with time, in my opinion, with how you communicate and with the people you talk to. Like, I think that, say, maybe coming out of college, a person communicates best through words of affirmation. So, in order for them to be successful in a relationship, they have to then feel that the person values them through words. While at work, they have to feel their boss values them through words, with affirming their ability, with affirming their skills, their success. And I think that then 5 years from now, 5 years later, they could be a boss then, right? And they have their own company. And so maybe they're not looking for words of information out loud, they're looking for probably acts of service. And acts of service may then translate to how they react in the home. And so I think it changes in that way.
Yeah, I think I get that, and I think it's important to know that about your partner. Do you think it's important that couples know what their love languages are, and is that a discussion that needs to be had?
Yeah, they said that's a requirement before you get married.
Hmm.
But I don't think it's just couples. That's what I'm trying to say. Love language isn't just relationships or romantic relationships. I genuinely think it's how you communicate through life on an every single daily basis.
Hmm.
Like a person who likes affirmation, they like that feeling. They may go through TSA pre-check, making sure that they have their shoes off, they have this ready, they have that ready, just so they can have that possibility where the TSA person who's never going to say it will go, "Wow, I appreciate you being so fast through security." And that would make that person stay. But what motivates them and everything they do could be stemming from their need for words of affirmation, because that is how they feel love and appreciation and trust and good communication and all those things. They think they get some validation to themselves because they received how they like to be loved.
Do you think that you can receive? So I like that because you're right. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that happens within a relationship. I mean, words of affirmation, as a coach, or you coaching someone, you might be able to get those those needs from someone other than a partner, or someone other than a friend. Um, when you talk about quality time, I was just trying to navigate that. When you talk about quality time with a person, or quality time with yourself?
They're both.
Okay.
It's both. Quality time is considered like both. Like
Mhm.
for some people, quality time may be okay, they need to have a date night every Friday. They have to then have a self-care day. They have to have weekly meetings with their boss. They have to like they need those moments so they can feel connected to whatever it is they need to feel connected to.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So when you talk about active service, it's so for me, I think that's important. As I navigate the RPFBC, navigating Kids Matter, navigating some of the non-for-profits that I'm in. That's something that I get gratification from. Is my active service, and I guess that's where then also just being part of a giving humanitarian culture. So that's where I find that hasn't really changed for me.
I think that also acts of service is more than just actual servitude. I think it's also like solving problems. I think it's also being like an activator. I think that's also service. In terms of acts of service, it's you're a do person instead of a receive person. And the way people with acts of service qualities live their life is like they also try to enforce their style of acts of service on other people because they try to love people through their love languages. That's kind of like the whole point of everything. And that's why you need to understand what people's love languages are in order for you to have an ability to receive them. Because if you approached me with acts of service and you approach me with gift giving, which are people's different qualities, I as a person have to then see like, okay, why is he always doing too much? Some people can feel that way, right? Like, why is he always doing this? Why does he always have to do that? But in some people, you have to remember that people live their lives through how they do their love languages. So they try to like love on other people and give to other people in the way that they want to feel or receive. So I think that like what you might have mistaked a little bit is that love languages are how you like to receive love. And that then comes out through how you do actions. So if you are a person who says, I like acts of service, that means you like acts of service for you
Okay.
being given to you, and then you go out into the world and you like to give acts of service because people give their love languages. People treat people the way they want to be treated. That's like the most like nursery simple statement that we have lived on for our entire lives, right? Is treat people the way you want to be treated. But that's genuinely very true with love languages because the way that you try to treat other people is how you want to be treated. It's like a psychological thing for us. So like if you like to give like service, it means you want service to be given back in some sort of way.
Okay. Thank
Where
you.
people with who are very strongly like always giving out compliments, always like, oh, they're affirming this, they're affirming that. They want that type of energy and communication back to them. Like, hey, I really appreciate what you did today. You did this, and this. It was an awesome job.
So the words of affirmation, that's something that I need. I need words of affirmation. I need positivity. Is that what you're saying?
That's what words of affirmation is.
Okay. All right.
To affirm somebody,
Mm-hmm.
to remind them to express verbally that you appreciate them.
Right.
In some sort of way, right? It's like some people, like that's what I said. Like some people who are words of affirmation live their lives every single day. They go to O'Hare, they go through TSA, and they do everything right, just hoping that somebody will acknowledge that they did things right. It's similar with kids in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like the kids who line up straight, right? The kids who keep their mouths shut, the kids that are always on time, always this, always that, because they're hoping that then they get an affirmative, an affirmation. Great job, Johnny. Here's a stickers, Johnny. Like just acknowledging them in a positive light. Yes. And they likely are the same way to other people because they want that back.
Okay.
It can seem very selfish when you look at it from that point of view in some sort of way,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a knee-jerk reaction instinct for us to treat other people the way we want to be treated. Like quality time with the affirmation gift giving, some people are like, they give gifts. So for you to be mad at them about wanting to give people gifts, it's almost like you're going to continuously going in circles with that person, because they're not going to stop something that's psychologically ingrained as a preference. Does that make sense?
That's part of their love language. It's part of what they want to do.
Live their life, right? That's just for them, right? And so that gives them joy. So some people can find ways to always push back against people's love languages. Like some people get annoyed with people who have acts of service. Some people get annoyed with people who are gift giving. Some people are annoyed with people who are physical touch, like high five, slap on the back, hug. Like some people can't stand that. Some people are like, I'm more of a like quality time. I'm more of a verbal person. Don't touch me. Some people are that way, right? But for them to get mad at somebody for expressing themselves through their language, that just comes natural to them. They were just raised that way, right? It's just how life molded them. They're just shooting themselves in the foot.
Right.
Because you can't change somebody's love language. Love languages change with time. And that has to change with them. Like they have to, like some people don't become acts of service until they have children. Some people don't become people who appreciate affirmation until they become a husband or a wife, right? When they need validation because they rely on that person or lean on that person in some sort of way.
Wow. So yeah, the way I started this off was I was completely looking at it in a different direction, but I get it now. So I guess they do change with time. They do change. When you look at these 5 love languages, and you know me pretty well, what would you think? What would be my top 1 through 5? What would be the top?
Well, you got to take the test. I don't know if you've taken the test, but that you actually know the answers to these questions before I guess. But I would say acts of service and quality time.
Okay.
That's who you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But those things are very like, that's my thing. If like you can think about anybody in your life. You can think about a coworker, you can think about a cousin, and then you can think about a partner.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 people, their love languages are very clear if you've known them for longer than 2 years or a year. It's very clear. And you have to. No.
Right.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. You're going to continue. There's many ways to look at this, right? Like there's one way is like stop getting mad at other people for how they express themselves or communicate or act or just move, but also understanding that the way that they express their love languages and communicate through their own personal language has nothing to do with you. And I think that that's always interesting, but it's hard for people to kind of get to that point. Because like, you ever met that kid in the class who's like, gosh, they're always like raising their hand. They're always like, look at what I did. Look what I did. Look what I did. Look what I do. And like, God dang, shut up. You know that kid? Like you can't get him like, stop, shh, be quiet. But that kid likely needs someone to go, hey, good job, Johnny. And his entire day will be made. Or else he feels like what he did wasn't worth anything. So it's always funny to see how like love languages, like I think when you put love languages like together and it's the first word is love, I think people get distracted and think that only belongs to romantic relationships, but I think that it's how we communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Because your love languages, your language is literally born and created off of how life molded you before the ages of 14. Your developmental years.
Wow.
Whether it's you came from a household that did not communicate affirmation, whether you came from a household that was abusive, whether you came from a household that was extremely loving and expressive, whether you came from a household that, right, like that was very independent, that was dependent. Like there's so many different things that can mold kind of how you communicate with other people through your preference language. What makes you a gift giver, right? What makes you a person that needs and wants to give affirmation.
So I guess back to the question, and I'm asking this question, but I don't know. What do you think? So you mentioned it, the way that you were brought up, culture that you brought up in, your family, the way you were treated.
Yeah.
You think those are things that kind of stir what your love languages are, your life experiences? And
It's so clear it's 1 + 1 = 2. It's exactly what impacts who you are within your love languages. There's no doubt in my mind. None.
mhm,
That is a 100% very clear situation. You don't just wake up and you're born, and from a baby, if you skip from a baby to 14, you would have to then develop your love languages. Like it would just have to, you have to go through something in order for you to create a preference over an opinion over thing.
right.
I don't just put a random new thing of sushi in front of you and be like, hey, do you like this or not? You didn't get to try it.
I like that. So, what do you think happens to someone? And this is, you might not be an answer, but what would be something examples of what happens? Somebody experience that would make quality time one of their love languages.
Being abandoned.
Okay.
There's a book. Hold on, let me turn my camera off really quick because I can get the book. It's called Attached. I have it in my library. It's called Attached. I have it right here. It's right here. This is the book.
Okay.
Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel S. Heller. The Science of Adult Attachment. Your attachment is another thing. So your love languages are your psychological makeup as well as your attachment theory. So how you have anxious attachment. Yeah, I'll pull them all up. You have anxious attachment. You have avoidant attachment, and you have secure attachment. Anxious this all starts from the I don't know if you know anything about ducks, but if you see ducks, you have a mama duck, and then what do you have behind mama duck? You have itty bitty little ducks, right?
Right.
What people don't know is that the attachment between a mama duck and a baby duck is so delicate, right? If a baby duck in any sort of way is separated from the mama duck, they are going to attach to the next best thing. So if you, as a human being, run into a baby duck, that baby duck now attaches to you, and you'll notice that the baby duck now follows you wherever you go. It's just the attachment theory it's one of the ones we use the most. So anxious attachment are people who are often preoccupied with their relationships, tend to worry about their partner's ability to love them back. Avoiding attachment, people equate intimacy with a loss of independence and constantly try to minimize closeness. So that's the people that try to hold people at arm's length. Anxious attachment is people that are like yanking on their shirt. And then secure attachment is people who feel comfortable with intimacy and are usually warm and loving, but have a healthy balance between the two. So the idea is that, and this is science, the idea is that who you are and the relationship you have with your mother within the first couple of years molds how you interact within relationships with other people.
Oh, wow.
And overall, just life itself. So similar to your languages, your love languages, is the exact same thing. So say a mother is more of an independent woman, right? So she has to work. Well, then you're raised with either a housekeeper or a nanny or a babysitter or a daycare, right? So you're going to grow up likely in two separate directions. One, avoidant, because you are afraid to get too close because that person will leave again. Or anxious, where you hold on too tightly because you think that person is going to leave again. So quality time often stems with people who are in an avoidant attachment style, not avoidant, anxious attachment style, where they're so worried that those times and those moments that they have are few and far between. So they want quality time because they just want that feeling of being with someone in that moment, that happiness, those memories, because you don't know how long they're going to have them again.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's everything comes from who we are as children. Everything comes from our relationship with our mother. That's just a known fact because the mother carries the child. Yeah, they have the entire genetic makeup.
How about that was very well. That was a really good analysis of that. Thank you for sharing that. How about acts of service?
That's always an interesting one. And I don't even, because I'm not an acts of service person. But I think acts of service are people who are either, what you see in people who are acts of service are people who are normally older siblings who have had to take care of other younger siblings or have had to sacrifice personal time for service. And so they love in that way because it's habitual, but they want acts of service back because they want people to then help take care of them as well.
Interesting. Okay.
So if you grew up thinking or having to babysit your siblings every day, you grew up having to make dinner, you grew up having to walk so and so to school, you grew up doing those things. So service comes naturally to you. It's in habit. You're responsible, you're in charge, you lead. But in some sort of way, you also want that back because then you feel also like your hard work is being appreciated and rewarded back to you. But that one, yeah, you see that in a lot of like older siblings or anybody that had a responsibility to taking care of others from a very young age.
And we talked about what happens that creates that words of affirmation. What happens to someone growing up that makes words of affirmation such an important love language?
Yeah, that one's interesting to me because like it's so easy to look at that and be like, well, obviously that person didn't receive positive feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But like I feel like there's people that even receive positive feedback who still need more words of affirmation. That one's always interesting to me.
Don't you think everybody needs that and wants that?
Textbook is that you didn't receive it as a child, so you should want it as an adult.
Right.
And it could be that. It could be that. It's very much is. I think it's 98% chance that is that.
Right.
Even if they come from like, even if there's a healthy balance between the two. If this is very common in athletes as well, because everything they do, you communicate, hey, good job, Johnny.
Right.
Back so and so. Like there's always a vocal component to a task. And I think that that's where words of affirmation come in because there's always feedback in sports, whether it's good or bad feedback. So then when you go out in the real world, you don't have feedback. So you're looking for feedback to know that you did something well.
Right. So it's really, when we say about athletes, remember the Positive Coach Alliance talks about for every criticism, you need 5 praises to offset that one criticism.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that I think as athletes we really, really need because a lot of times that criticism is something that we're already beating ourselves up about. And then the last one, what happens where physical touch becomes really important?
Probably someone that didn't get hugged.
Yeah.
Express physical appreciation, love, high fives. I think that's a big piece to things.
Do you think that happens more with young men than women?
Yeah.
Because, we're so taught not to touch, not to feel, not to have emotion.
Because you'll be taught to not touch, to not feel. That's what I think of missing piece. I think our generations now are being taught, no, keep your hands to yourself until people want you to use your hands. But I do think that, yeah, there's a big piece of that because there's a reason why men are taught not to touch, not to feel, because you guys are naturally the stronger being. You're naturally the stronger humans. Little boys are going to be stronger than little girls at some point. So when they teach little boys, don't keep your hands to yourself because they're heavy-handed, right? Like, if you ever see a little girl with a baby and a little boy with a baby, it's 2 different dynamics, right?
Yeah,
they're trying to be gentle, right? They're trying to be gentle, but one hasn't naturally come to them, and someone is more heavy hand. Whoops, my bad. Sorry, I palmed their head. That's just a natural difference between the two to two genders, right? At a young age. So we teach little boys like, no, gentle, gentle. It's a baby. It's a little girl. Like you hold her hand, you take care of them, right? And so then when you guys get to a certain age, then when they get to a teenage age, we compile on is, okay, don't cry, don't complain, hustle through it. Because even though then sports involves, okay, now high fives. That's how you know you did a good job, right? And so it's common to see little boys, and then they grow up to become men who like need physical touch to know that they do well, right? They need to know like, okay, high five, butt slap. You know what I mean? Like they need to know they did achieve something. But a lot of men are still, in terms of like, it just really depends. There's a lot of things that depend. It's your relationship with your mother, where you lie within your sibling order, and if you're a male or a woman, a man or a woman. A lot of things compile to how you communicate through your love language, which ones you preference over your life. And then they change over time, right? A man can go into a marriage, particularly not needing physical touch, but then he has a son, and the best way he communicates his love is through wrestling with his son.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting. Yeah.
Or quality of time with his son. Right? And then with his daughter, he somehow starts, once his daughter comes along, now all of a sudden he's big on words of affirmation, and he wants that back because it comes so naturally into him. Like, you're so pretty, you're so smart, right? Look how great you did today. That's awesome. Okay, I want that back too. I wonder if, like, you know what I mean? So you start to see things. That's why I say it evolves, because who you are as a person is not the same person. Who you have in your inner circle is not the same beings. Your responsibility as a human changes through time. And also, I mean, you have to evolve with time. Your languages, look, no one is born into this world and then get to the age of 14 not having any form of trauma or just like discourse in their life, right? Like that's done, like something happened. Either they didn't make a basketball team, to the bereavement, to abuse, to kids were bullying them on the playground. Like there's so many things that cause kids to have to then become decision makers by the age of 14 years old. And so then from 14 to 22, you start to heal those things. And then from 22 to 30, you start to heal more things. And then from 30 to 40, you're continuously healing things so that you become a better person. And when you become a better person, it's only natural for your languages to change as well, and how you want to communicate with people and people to communicate with you. It's just a natural human, we're supposed to be growing type of thing. Right? Like that's why therapy is on a rise. That's why self-help books are on a rise. That's why people are studying more the psychological background of ourselves more, because something like this book attached has the playbook to why you love certain people the way you do.
Interesting.
Or why you prefer certain teammates over others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like over why, like, gosh, maybe every single time this person's like, yeah, you can come. I want to be your best friend. I want to be your best friend. Some people be like, I don't want to be your best friend, but I don't know why I don't want to be your best friend. Well, they might have an avoidant attachment style where they feel like they're unable to get close to that person because they're afraid of that person leaving. So we're supposed to be growing. And that's why our love languages are supposed to be evolving, because that means that we are achieving what we're supposed to be achieving on this earth.
How much does vulnerability and trust play into expressing your love languages?
Well, you can't, nothing can be received if it doesn't want to be received.
Right.
So let's go back to the gift giving one. If you love somebody that loves to give gifts, right? Or their way of, in some sort of way, I think gift giving is an act of service. But if their act of service, like that's the thing, that's how you switch it up. So, okay, I'm a gift giver. I have to every morning get you a coffee. That's acts of service. I have to write you a handwritten card of my love every single month. I do that for Shane. I write him a card every month. I'm not a gift giver, but I am like a acts of service type of person, because I like that reciprocated, right? Because I'm an older sibling. So I'm like, here's your card. You read it. throws it in the drawer, and there's a stack of cards for 3 years of cards, right? He probably never brings them out, never reads them again. But if I miss a month, he's all of a sudden like, where's my card? And I'm like, I didn't even know you liked your cards. Like that, it's just, I'm not thinking about that. I'm continuously going through with what I want to do with my life because that makes me happy. And so he has to always be willing to receive the card, appreciate the card, say how much he appreciates me writing the card or me getting the coffee or me doing things like that to give a gift so that I know, oh, wow, it's great. So he has to be willing to receive in order for it to all work out. And in some sort of way, you sometimes have to look at it like, say you're an acts of service person and someone writes you a card and or they give you a gift and you're like, I didn't want this gift, right? I want service. In some sort of way, if you really allow your brains to think about it, they decided to service your relationship by thinking of you, getting a gift and serving it back to you. So it is always ways for you to kind of, in some sort of way, gift giving can be an act of service. So it's like, you can only, this is what they say, like, when a plant dies, you change the climate of the plant. You can only genuinely stem and grow and like really have happiness out of like communicating the way you need to communicate through the languages you want to communicate to people that want to receive those languages from you. And they don't have to be compatible, but you dang right need to be in some sort of way compatibility. Like it has to be like they have to find ways to receive, or else people are going to resent you for loving in a way that makes you happy that doesn't match with the way they want to be loved. And that's where you see discourse and issues, because you have to constantly remember that person isn't loving me the way I want them to love me. They're loving me the way they want to be loved themselves. And in some sort of way, that's okay. You just have to then communicate, maybe I didn't want this car. I want us to go for a drive in a car. It's just small shifts like that, but you have to communicate. Like love languages are one thing, but to be able to receive and acknowledge and appreciate and then communicate about them in an effective way is the only way for them to work. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so it kind of got me torn a little bit. So if you have a partner that or a friend that is a active service or giving, and that's something that makes you happy, and well, if that's something that doesn't make you happy, right? You don't really appreciate it, or it makes you feel uncomfortable. How do you make that something that works? How do you come to a level of acceptance that this is part of their love language, and I need to be able to accept and embrace that?
If your love language is acts of service, then you have to serve that person. And by doing that, it's by seeing how what makes them happy should make you happy.
Okay.
And that's the end of it. Like, it's one thing to toss things up to self-love and like you like things done a certain way, but it's also understanding that like life is full of compromise. And like in order for you to be happy, if you love somebody, their happiness has to overwhelm anything that comes across your brain of not unhappiness, but like not disappointment, just like not something that you like. You aren't compatible, right? So you can either be, all right, well, that's the straw that broke the camel's back. I'm not happy because we're not speaking the same language. Well, like, here's the thing, like, no one on this earth is going to speak your language because nobody has the same DNA or brain makeup as you. So you have to find ways to bend with things, right? So it's like, okay, my idea is you decided to serve me with a gift in some sort of way. You thought of me. You were proactive in thinking about me. And you decided to help or give or love. Like that's just, you decide to love me the way you want to be loved. That doesn't always work for everybody, but in some sort of way, if you really think about it, it is a poetic idea that like someone thought of you, decided to then go out of their way and do things the way they want to be treated, to then give all that energy instead of giving it back to themselves to you. So it's just kind of like how you do your brain a little bit.
Right.
But that's why like relationships, friendships, everything like has to constantly be flexible, or else
Compromise.
yeah, you have to. I do believe in compatibility, but I very much think that you have to be willing to like make compromises in order for you to figure things out. Because like life is you compromise with life. You compromise with life every single day. The day does not go the way you want it to go every single day. So it doesn't make sense for you to then not be able to compromise within your own life in a healthy way.
But
Like
can you,
really bend with how life throws things at you.
yeah. But can you compromise? Only compromise if it's something that you feel healthy about and not resentful about.
Exactly. But even then, you need to figure out what exactly makes me resentful. Is it just because it's not something I like? Okay, why don't I like it? Where does it come from? It comes from somewhere.
Control.
You have an opinion for a reason. Where does it come from? And so I think that's the biggest piece is like, where does it come from? And you're gonna constantly like think back on not 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years. You're going to think back to when you were 10 years old, trying to figure out what exactly and where does it come from that this makes me unhappy.
Right. So it gets back to what we talked about earlier. As we grow up, how we developed.
Yeah.
And we can't forget that, I spent time with my sister this weekend. Help me, just talk through some of that, and how what you see, your lens on things might be completely different than their lens on things, but the fact that we were able to talk about them was very, very helpful. And how much of this is impacted by how we grew up, these love languages, the words of affirmation, the physical touch, the quality time, all the way up. It's just a really
well, because when you do like the digging like that, like when you do like when you continuously like ask more questions and not stop at I don't like it. Well, why don't you like it?
mm-hmm.
You allow yourself to dig like that, then you're in a healthy space to be able to set boundaries. Then
Right.
you're in a healthy space to be able to actually ask for things of people because you have a reason to why you do it.
Right.
Because there's nothing worse than when you ask something of someone and you're like, well, why don't you like it? We're like, I don't know, I just don't like it. Well, that doesn't give enough for
Right.
people to genuinely then understand you. You have now cut that road off, and now you guys are no longer on the same playing field and how you can communicate in this situation. You have to ask, constantly question yourself and constantly try to figure out things, because it's easy for us to get to a certain age and forget things happen and forget like we were raised a certain way. It's easy to forget like we had a specific teacher and a specific grade that changed. There's so many things to forget. So it's important to always try to remember. And that's what asking the questions does. Because as you change, your love languages can change, and there's a chance that you don't know why they change, but you're going to have to continuously try to dig and do the research on yourself to figure it out.
Right.
So that's reinvesting into yourself.
Right. You know what I've learned and what I know about, I think it's important that we continue to seek out self-help and continue to grow and try and figure out ways of why we are who we are today versus yesterday. And, we talk about mental health and getting over the stigma of going to therapy, getting over the stigma of seeking things that will help you continue to grow are important. Because I guess we do change. We do change. It's our relationship from, over the last 12 years. They've changed because you've changed. You've grown. And I've been able to really accept that and embrace that. And that's why I thought about this yesterday. It'd be a really good topic because we talked about it before, maybe in one of our early episodes. And I thought having it and then seeing how they change or do they change is something that happens. And I guess they constantly will change because we continue to change. So thank you for sharing that. I really like that.
Yeah. No, great show. Again, this is the book that I referenced attached. In case anybody needs it. But again, this is a wonderful Monday. We are looking forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thanks for joining us to discuss some love languages, but also diving into a few other things. Of course, this is Faith Family Focus. We use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strengthening their own family core. And of course, our slogan:
let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let love.
Everyone have a wonderful Monday. We'll see you soon.